warm welcome. Where would you like to sit? Would you like a cushion for the back? I'll sit here. Yeah, or here, more in the center. Deepak, it is absolutely a pleasure for you joining us. I know that you have a very busy agenda during World Economic Forum.
My body does.
Your body does.
I don't.
No, I asked you, how do you retain your energy? I don't take things seriously. I love that answer. But one thing that you do take seriously, that is writing books. You have just launched your 95th book. I mean, isn't that applaudable? 95 books? It's like amazing, unfathomable. And this one is called Digital Dharma. So tell us a bit, about the concept of digital dharma and the book, just to lay the foundation.
So dharma is a Sanskrit word which is not so popular right now as karma, which has become a meme almost. Dharma has many connotations. Basic dharma is fulfilling the 7 levels of need, from survival, safety, love, belongingness, transformation, security, creativity, insight, intuition, imagination, and transcendence. So that's basic, very, if you've heard of the 7 chakras, they're metaphors for hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow used 5. In the Eastern wisdom traditions, you use 7. Actually, Abraham Maslow in his notes was talking about going beyond self-actualization to self-transcendence, but he never got to write about that. But in the bigger scheme, dharma is how do you fit into the mystery of existence? How do you find out who you are beyond your body and your mind and your everyday relationship with the world? Who are you? It's the biggest question. Who am I? If you say I'm a body, then which one? Fertilized egg, zygote, embryo, baby, toddler. The body is not a noun. It's a verb. It's a process. And so where is that process going on? If you say I'm my mind, then which one? If you want to run for president in the United States, then you freeze your mind at the age of 8 years. On and on. See, your mind is also constantly changing, your emotions. Is there a part of your existence which is not subject to change? And that is the essence of dharma. It's called freedom from the conditioned mind. Because we're all conditioned, economically conditioned, religiously conditioned, politically conditioned, racially conditioned, nationally, ethnicity. And it's been going on for 40,000 years. And so we don't realize it, but this conditioning is making us essentially biological robots. We are predictable. And we are all, what's the word? Intelligent agents, but not so intelligent because we are predictable, just like AI is predictable, right? Large language models are predictable. And if they don't know the answer, they hallucinate. So these language models are essentially not about dharma. They're essentially about recycling the conditioned mind. So dharma is how do you break the algorithm for fundamental creativity. Fundamental creativity is not innovation. It's not iPhone 14 instead of iPhone 10. It's the first iPhone. It's the first automobile. It's the first aviation. The first breakthrough, which is a death and a resurrection. Old contexts, old meanings, old relationships, old stories die. As humans, we all live stories. Even when you sell a business, you're not selling a product or a service, you're selling a story. And the more resonant your story is, the more successful you're going to be. And dharma truly means how do you actually break the algorithm? You've probably heard, if you're a mathematician, you've heard of Gödel's theorem, theorems that are true but cannot be proven because they are intuitive, they're contextual, they're relational, they're holistic, they don't have a win-lose orientation. You're eavesdropping on an intelligence that is not even human.
And do you feel or find or know that we are sort of raising the global consciousness in a sense, that we're sort of tapping more into? I mean, of course, what you're saying is maybe logically we can understand it, but maybe not always personify it within ourselves, but sort of consciously rising to become more conscious of who we are, or to become more conscious of how we're going to navigate the future.
Yes, but not fast enough.
No.
I mean, if you look at the big problems right now, climate change, social, economic, gender injustice, racism, bigotry, war, mechanized death, drones, cyber warfare, chronic illness, suicide as a pandemic, and total absence of joy, that scenario suggests we are sleepwalking to extinction.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely. With what's happening, we are sleepwalking to extinction. On the other hand, there is a movement of consciousness. In fact, if you go on the internet and you type out what are the unsolved problems in science, number one right now is what's the universe made of? And number two is what's the biological basis of consciousness? And both these questions are, by the way, not going to be answered because they're the wrong questions. The universe is not made of anything. It's a human construct. There is no universe. You know, what we call the universe is human perceptual activity, which is very species specific. You know, we have a narrow bandwidth of perceptual activity as a result of the human brain. But you and I don't navigate through ultraviolet or infrared or have the abilities of a dolphin or a dragonfly with 30,000 eyes or even, you know, other species that have different access to what we call reality. So what we call the objective world, including the universe, is a human perceptual activity in consciousness. So if you ask scientists what's the universe made of, mathematicians or physicists, the final answer you'll get is it's made of nothing. See, 70% of the universe is dark energy, which we have no idea what it is because it's not atomic. Of the remaining 30%, 27% is dark matter. Again, we don't know what it is. It's not atomic. 3% of the universe is atomic. Of that, 99.999% is invisible interstellar dust. We can't see it. So the visible universe, which is 2 trillion galaxies, 706 trillion stars, and now we are told, according to the James Webb Telescope, not probably, but almost certainly 60 billion habitable planets in the Milky Way galaxy. Multiply that by 2 trillion, and our planet is not even 1 grain of sand in all the beaches and all the deserts of the world. On this planet, we have a species called Homo sapiens who's trying to figure it out at the World Economic Forum.
We have to try somewhere.
The gall is quite amazing, actually. So the 0.01% that is atomic, the visible universe, as we know, atoms are made of particles, and particles have a schizophrenic nature. When you're looking at them, they look like particles. They have units of mass and energy, but you stop looking at them, they evolve into waves of probability in mathematical space. So what's the universe made of? Nothing. Which leads to the second question, why does it look like this? Why does it appear like this? What's the biological basis of consciousness? And the reason I'm saying we won't be able to answer that question is that consciousness is not an epiphenomenon. In fact, even there's no science of consciousness, although we go to all these conferences, science of consciousness. Science itself is an activity in consciousness. So consciousness is fundamental. It's not an emergent property of the universe. Consciousness is fundamental. And so in Eastern wisdom traditions, it's called Brahman, Atman. Schrodinger would have called it the wave function. It doesn't matter. But there's a field of possibilities that's beyond space and time. Religious people call it divine. Some people call it the matrix. Some people call it consciousness. Some people call it awareness. There's a fundamental reality which is without cause, which is infinite, which has no borders, which is spaceless, which is timeless, which is eternal, and which is incomprehensible. It's beyond our imagination, but without it, there's no imagination. Without it, there's no experience. That is the biggest quest today in science. If we get that right, then we have the ability to possibly create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. And that's where technology comes in, because, AI, with all its large language models, you have now access to every human endeavor that has existed for 40,000 years. You can mine the mind of Plato or Socrates or the sages of the Upanishads or Jesus Christ or the Buddha or any scientific knowledge, mathematics, biology, physics, anthropology. So it's a very interesting time how we can use AI to bring together disparate systems of human thought. Although no system of human thought will give you access to reality. No system of human thought. No religion, no philosophy, no science, no technology will give you access to what is essentially not conceptualizable or perceivable. Fundamental reality is not conceptualizable or perceivable through any formal science or philosophy or religion. It's not, because reality, who you are, is not perceivable. There's nobody inside here. There's no little Deepak inside here looking at the world outside through these eyes. So where am I if I'm not in the body? These days people say, oh, so-and-so had a near-death experience. They had an out-of-body experience. Well, both the out-of-body experience and the in-body experience are hallucinations. There's no one inside, there's no one outside. What we call the body, the mind, and the physical world are human constructs for a reality in which we are all contained. And that reality is incomprehensible, although it's experiential. So let me ask you a question right now. So far, what I've said, is it interesting to you? Can you be a little more enthusiastic, please?
Yes!
Okay. So now let me ask you the same question, but don't answer it, okay? So I'm going to ask you, this conversation interesting? Don't answer it till I raise my hand. Is this conversation interesting? I said don't answer it. I'll repeat it. Is this conversation interesting? So my question is a mental event. Your answer is a mental event. In between is what we call consciousness or awareness. Without that awareness, there's no mind, there's no perception, there's no thought, there's no emotion, there's nothing. But this gap just now between your thoughts, you experienced it, it's not in time. Okay? So once again, as you're listening to me, just become aware of that which is listening. And what you're aware of right now is what spiritual traditions call the soul. But that's a kind of a religious term. Just call it awareness. And awareness is not in time. It's this awareness was there when you were a baby. Different mind, different body, different emotions. And because it's not in time, it's not subject to birth and death. And, with all this talk about longevity, we are not talking about something that never ages.
Or so.
And that is awareness. Awareness doesn't age. Your mind ages, your body ages, your emotions change. Everything is subject to entropy. Everything is subject to entropy. It's this law of thermodynamics. And all the aging research we're doing, signal molecules, adaptogens, mTOR, mechanisms, pathways, you can, everything, no matter what research you do on aging, I can guarantee you, if you're stressed and you have time sickness, it overrides everything. Okay? Because even during COVID, by the way, we did a lot of meta-analysis through AI. And the people who were dying or getting sick, they had inflammation, they had depression, they were stressed, they had sympathetic overdrive, they had inflammatory storms, and it was predicted who was going to die. AI can predict now who is going to get sick, who can die, and when they'll die. So you have not only biomarkers, but even through facial recognition, micro expressions, tone of voice, body language, you will be able to predict somebody's age instantly, digitally. So that is there. But the interventions, which are very brilliant on all these pathways, signal molecules, all this is brilliant, and everything else is brilliant, nutrition, the role of emotions, but we're not talking about the most fundamental thing, which is the consumption of time. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, aging is the metabolism of time. Mm. And there's one part of you that is not subject to the laws of thermodynamics. It's your spirit. Or if you don't want to call it spirit, fundamental reality or consciousness or awareness doesn't age. I wrote a book in the 80s which became a bestseller thanks to Oprah Winfrey called Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. And I don't think anybody read it, even though it was a bestseller, because it was nobody talks about the metabolism of time. Time is the consumer, they say in Eastern wisdom traditions, and we are its food. We are time's food. Time consumes you. How do you stop the metabolism of time or slow it down? If your internal dialogue is, I'm too busy, I don't have time, your biological clock will be speeded up. Your heart rate will be fast. Your platelets will be jittery. Your heart rate variability will be rigid and low. And if you suddenly drop dead of a heart attack, you'll have run out of time. This is the sickness of today, time sickness.
Very interesting. How do we metabolize time? And sort of because it's...
We metabolize every experience, but right now in the metabolic studies, we only talk about the metabolism of food or drugs. We don't talk about the metabolism of experience. But every experience is metabolized into a molecule. That's epigenetics, Ram.
Very interesting. It sounds so simple, yet so complex. You sort of want to like the red and the blue pill, understand it. But if we put it in a context of wellness and mental health, because of course it's the physiology in our mind and our thoughts that really maybe propel how we perceive our reality. And like you say, stress is maybe the biggest igniter of illness than anything else. So how should we cultivate and live our lives based on the principles that you just mentioned? What are sort of the most important parameters for that?
See, again, mental well-being. It's the meme right now. There's no such thing. Mental well-being is an oxymoron. Okay? Because mind is never well. You have everything you want, but there's something around the corner that you still want, and it never happens, right? You have the best relationships, best health, lots of money. Something is missing. Okay, so there's no such thing as mental well-being. The only well-being is spiritual, which is the background of the mind. Think of a TV screen and all the programs on the TV screen, all the melodrama, that's the mind. But the TV screen is not affected by what is happening on the TV screen. You can have innumerable melodramas, which is what life is. okay, which is what the mind is, melodrama. But there's a part of you that is not limited by that. And so that is awareness, that is consciousness. There is no mental well-being. Just like hope is an oxymoron. As soon as you say, is there hope, you're implying despair. So either think of the conditioned mind or think of creativity. You answered, how should we live our lives? Creatively, playfully. Okay. Who are the most creative people on the planet? Children. Till they get bamboozled by our conditioning. You say, you are Deepak, you're Indian, you're male, this is your history, this is your social status, and now you're screwed for the rest of your life. You forgot how to play and to be creative. Creativity and play are the essence of well-being.
Doesn't that make it sound so much easier and fun? Huh? It's like Einstein said, intelligence is creativity.
No, he
having
said
fun.
imagination.
Is imagination.
Yeah. Which is
Creativity,
imagination now.
Yeah.
There's no biological explanation for imagination. Okay? So everything that we give credit to for the brain is a 3-pound organ, mostly water and fat and a few chemicals. It has no creativity. It has no intuition. It has no insight. It has no imagination. It has no emotions. And we give all this credit to the brain because we can see neural correlates in the brain. Right now, you're looking at me. You're seeing colors. You're seeing red. You're seeing blue. You're listening to sound. There's no color in your brain. There's no sound in your brain. There's nothing that we call experience in your brain. There's only electrochemistry, which is a human construct for experiences, but it's not reality. So again, our neuroscience is very sophisticated. You can track a thought, but you don't know what a thought is. You can track an emotion. You can track creativity and imagination without knowing where they come from. So the brain is a biocomputer, and your body is a biosensor and a biomotor. And you are neither. You're not the brain, you're not the body, you're not the mind, and you're not the experience of the world. You're the source of all that. So the source of experience is what we're missing, and everything becomes about experience. If I have this experience, I'll get a dopamine hit. If I get this experience, I'll get an oxytocin hit. But what is the source of that? Okay? Again, words like oxytocin, dopamine, brain, neural correlates, genetics, epigenetics, these are human inventions for modes of knowing and experience in consciousness. And that's the elephant in the room. All our research doesn't address consciousness. It addresses experience in consciousness. Your body is an experience in consciousness. Your mind is an experience in consciousness. The world is an experience in consciousness. We're trying to manipulate the product of experience without knowing the source of experience. It's like, what's the expression in spiritual traditions? Instead of watering the root, you're polishing the plant.
Do you think that technology will be an enabler for us to maybe, become more aware of what we're not aware, become more the source of consciousness?
Absolutely. See, if you look at this human species, what distinguishes us from every other species, one is the fact that we make tools. Okay, we made tools even before we walked upright, before we had spoken language. Plant tools, Stone Age tools, knives, and on and on. The agricultural age, the scientific age, the industrial age, the age of technology, which is very recent. Technology is not even 100 years old. Industrial age, yes, 300 years old. Scientific age with Galileo, if you take it, 500 years. The human species has been around for 200,000 years. Written language is only 6,000 years. So the record of human history that we have is 6,000 years. 40,000 years ago was cognitive revolution. AI, as we know it, as the large language model, 2012, and we are in 2025. There's nothing. We just, not even infants. But if you take our ability to create language models, which is what we do with AI, but which is what we did. Latitude, longitude, money, Wall Street, these are all language models. Even your body is a language model. Everything is a language model. So the human species created the human experience of the universe. One, they created technology. And the best technology they created was fire. Okay? Had we not created fire, had we not cooked food, you wouldn't have the human brain, which consumes 20% of your energy, is because we created fire. Okay, and we started eating cooked food. We extracted micronutrients that other species didn't. Our entire biology is based on the discovery of fire. But then you go a little bit beyond that. If we had not discovered fire, no steam engine. No steam engine, no industrial age. No industrial age, no technology age, etc., etc. Now with large language models, we can access all this. Okay, there's no human being who can do that. Okay, so we, between the ages of 1886, the period 1886 and 1903, that's not even 20 years. There was the light bulb, the automobile, aviation, and the telephone. So let's say you were stranded on a desert island in 1885, and then somebody rescued you in 1904, less than 20 years. The world that you showed up in less than 20 years, you wouldn't recognize. It would not be in your imagination in 1888. What we're seeing today is a cultural and social evolution. It's happening right here in Davos right now with these conferences. But what we're not recognizing is there's a biological evolution coming, which will be bigger than the evolution that occurred after the discovery of fire, because now we can manipulate genes, we can edit genes, we have messenger RNA, we'll have vaccines for aging, we'll have vaccines to prevent chronic illnesses like Alzheimer's, heart disease. We'll have the ability, already have, the ability to change 95% of the genetic information in the body, which is bacterial. So you take gene editing, you take messenger RNA and its implications. You look at the microbiome, and then you look at all these new developments, vaccines for aging, for chronic illness. You look at the consciousness revolution. You look at what the psychedelic revolution is telling us. But you put it all together through AI, and in 20 years, you're going to have a new species. I'm saying this right now, and when I say it, people roll up their eyes. But I'm guaranteeing you that if you can take care of yourself for the next 20 years, you will evolve from Homo sapiens to meta-humans. Okay, that'll be a big, when we left the primates in Africa 40,000 years ago, we walked out of Africa, all of us, okay, on two legs instead of crawling out, and with language as a model. And we then came up with models: Greenwich Mean Time, latitude, longitude, money, Wall Street, exchange, empires, monarchies, colonialism. 40,000 years ago, it started. And then, before that was technology, existed even before that. Now what we're seeing is a leapfrogging into social, cultural, and biological evolution, and a world that even Homer or the sages of the Upanishads couldn't dream of. The biggest imagination is not capable of that, what technology is going to bring.
Wow. Yeah, the exciting times, and it's going to be interesting to see the transition and the transformation of what we will be becoming. Will we be becoming more of a humanness or more transhumanism?
I would rather use the word meta-human.
Yeah,
Meta means beyond human imagination at the moment. Neural networks are going to rewire. Genes are going to take on new expression. We already know. Every experience changes your neural network. Every time you use your iPhone to watch TikTok, you're addicted to TikTok, you're getting a dopamine hit, right? And you're changing some neural network. If we selectively know how to trigger genes and change neural networks, we talk about these things: extrasensory perception, out-of-body experiences, memories of other lifetimes in the matrix of collective consciousness, predicting the future. This is all going to happen through technology. Okay, it's already happening. You don't recognize it. When you do FaceTime with somebody, that's remote viewing and remote hearing, right? It's just you take it for granted. But now we have immersive experiences coming. You have VR coming. You have MR, mixed reality. You have extended reality. You have immersive experiences. What we don't realize is that the body that you have is part of the immersive experience already. So we are in a VR world already, and the VR technologies and immersive technologies is just going to extend that range of experience. Without even knowing what causes experience, we can manipulate it, which is amazing, absolutely. Because if I asked you, what's the source of thought? Where does imagination come from? Intuition, insight, creativity. Actually, you don't have an answer. But you do it. Every child does it till it gets bamboozled by social constructs. So, there's a saying in India, every child that is born is proof that God has not yet given up on human beings.
Oh, that's good. But Deepak, what is the purpose of life?
I would say playfulness and creativity. I think that's what we forget. We take it so seriously. And then even all this aging, people are stressing about not getting old. What's his name? Boris Johnson or what is
Brian
it?
Johnson.
Brian Johnson.
Don't die.
I mean, his seminar is called Don't Die. Well, that means be doomed to eternal senility. Because if you're a biologist, how many biologists are here in this room? You are familiar with the term apoptosis, programmed cellular death. When death doesn't happen, that's a cancer cell. Okay? Cancer is the loss of the memory of death. And death is resurrection. They go together. Death is not the opposite of life. Death is the opposite of birth. Birth and death are opposites. Life is the continuum of birth and death, both. Okay? Without death, there's no freshness. Look at a baby, it's fresh. Absolutely fresh. Okay, so the recycling of consciousness is dependent on death. And everything recycles. Energy recycles, matter recycles, information recycles. The source of all this is consciousness. If consciousness didn't recycle, you wouldn't have energy and matter and information recycling. So, the fact is, the universe is a recycling plant. That's what it is. And now we have stopped doing that. Even plastic recycles. Takes a longer time, but there's nothing that does not recycle. And the fresher it is, the more it is acceptance of the playfulness of creation, which is creativity, insight, imagination, joy, and that's it. And if we could do that, we would have a more peaceful world.
Yeah.
But right now, watch where the money is going. It's going into mechanized death. All the money is going into mechanized death. America is the biggest purveyor of merchandising death. And so is Europe, and so is India now, and so is everybody else. It's we are an insane species.
That's the conclusion.
Even though we are
But
creative.
we want longevity. But I just thought I would give as we have the pleasure of having your presence. So just quickly some questions so we can give the audience. There we have one. There we have one. Is that okay?
Yes, of course. Okay, go ahead.
Ladies first.
Thank you so much. Super fascinating. Thank you so much. Very fascinating. I was thinking about intuition and creativity, and so the conscious brain and the subconscious are very different in size, if we could put a size to it. So most of the information that enters our sensors is stored in the subconscious. So someone was talking 2 days ago about intuition, and you have like this gut sense. You don't know quite what it is yet, but can you explain a little bit more about, there's so much information in the subconscious. It could be something that's not consciously coming to your mind, but it's the information that you collected, and it's prompting you to, there's something there, but it's...
So I can answer your question from two perspectives. One is modern science perspective, which is what you're using. When you say brain, you're immediately talking about a physicalist ontology, which is useful as a model, but it's not real. Your brain doesn't think, nor does your autonomic nervous system. You think, okay? And your brain orchestrates the whole thing. The autonomic nervous system is, of course, has access to what you call the subconscious mind. So it is much more alert and aware than your conscious mind, much more alert. Intuition is a form of intelligence which is contextual, which is relational, which is holistic, which does not have a win-lose orientation. It's kind of eavesdropping on the collective zeitgeist or collective consciousness. So from a physicalist ontological perspective, your autonomic system is right now overriding your conscious brain. And that means fight, flight, reactivity, etc. Everything that we call stress in the world. It is overriding. Stress is the number one epidemic in the world, leads to all other issues. The parasympathetic nervous system, which gets activated during meditation, through mindfulness, through breathing techniques, you can learn to regulate your parasympathetic nervous system. These days, a lot of people are talking about interoceptive awareness. Interoceptive and what is also called proprioceptive, but also visceroceptive awareness. You learn how to monitor and regulate your internal organs. Yogic practices like regulating body temperature, regulating heart rate, regulating blood pressure, regulating immune response. It's all possible, okay, through the autonomic nervous system, through breathing techniques, yoga, and mindfulness and meditative practices. This is the Western model. The Eastern model says consciousness is fundamental, and experience goes through 4 stages, almost like the wave function. So the first level is totally unmanifest, infinite possibilities. It's called para, beyond, meta reality. The second is it starts to coalesce into a cloud of probabilities, just like the superposition of particles starts to coalesce into a wave function. The third level is you have an internal dialogue. You hear your thought. That's third. That's way down the stream. Okay, so now you say, should I have coffee? Should I have tea? Or should I see a comedy or should I see a tragedy? Should I call this girl up or should I not? Okay, that's your third level. And the fourth is speech and action. Okay, and most of us are at the third or the fourth level with no access to the first 2 levels. If you had access to the first 2 levels, infinite possibilities, and the cloud of probabilities, then you have intuition, creativity, imagination, everything. And that comes from going deep into beyond your internal dialogue. So even with that simple thing, when I said, do you find this interesting? Don't answer. You went into awareness which has no mental activity. That's the source of every experience. Okay, so from an Eastern perspective, you have to go to the source of experience, and then you can change experience. You can manipulate experience, which we do with our technologies, because the human species is very intelligent. It makes models of reality. So everything that we call science is a model of reality, just like latitude or longitude or Wall Street or anything that we can give a name to is a model, is not reality. Reality is that which creates the models. Sir.
It seems that the thrust of what you're what you're talking about is a lot to do with the concept of time, or our concept of time. And there's a gentleman that I'm sure you know called Sadhguru,
Yes.
who talks a lot about time being just the here and now. And the past is irrelevant, the future is irrelevant, and it's just the concept of time now. What's your view on that as it relates to what you're talking about with respect to the playfulness and creativity, which seems to be your theme?
As soon as you have a subject-object split, time is born. So time is the continuity of memory using your conditioned mind as the subject of experience. Subject, object, there's time. When there's no subject, no object, it's one experience. You could call it love, for example, or you could call it ultimate play, playfulness. Children don't have a concept of time when they're playing. Okay, athletes don't have a concept of time when they're in the peak performance. Musicians don't have concept of time when they're, when they're in the peak moments of the symphony. You're not thinking of when is the symphony going to end. Okay, you've never, or when is the song going to end, or when is this poem going to end. It's totally in the present moment, and that's all you have. Even the past is a thought in the present moment. The future is a thought. But the present moment itself is an oxymoron, because by the time you hear my words, they don't exist.
So, but then you sit with Sadhguru, don't you?
I have sat with him once or twice.
No, I'm
Well, we just have to, sorry.
No,
is it okay?
I'd like to answer his question.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
So time doesn't exist, but we ran out of it.
I sort of saying
This is the paradox.
this is the
There is only presence. There's no time. When you have presence, there's no time.
Perfect. Deepak, thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge, for sharing your presence, for sharing your time, and for reminding us of the importance of joy and happiness, and to tap into our consciousness and being in the present, and that our body can also heal us.
Just remember that. Joy is the only measure of success. Otherwise,
I love
you
that.
wasted your life.
Oh, thank you so much, Deepak.